So my name is Ethan. I'm the CTO of DevEx group in Wix.
And I'm Tomer. I'm leading the DevEx group. Maybe we want to start by describing like the overall group and where it is structured within Wix. So for those of you who doesn't know, Wix is built from many business units. We call them companies. And they are delivering on a certain business domain. They're built as a company. That means that they have everything they need in order to actually produce the product that they need. And they have different skill sets in their company, backend, front-end, product, marketing, all those aspects. Also, we have horizontal layers within Wix that we call them guilds. They're responsible for everything that is like professional part, hiring, development, and everything like this. Deciding on in the backend front-end guild, they're deciding also on technologies and providing some frameworks. And the DevEx group is outside this structure. We are part of an infrastructure group that actually works with companies, with the guild, with a lot of other stakeholders to actually be able to provide Wix with the best way to develop, to produce code, to push it to production, and actually to serve Wix users.
Yeah, so if we look, like if we have the companies and the guilds, so infra is basically the foundations.
Mm-hmm. Great. We are the foundation. And this is why we have this Moses holding the world on his shoulder. So let's talk about a little bit about our stakeholders. How diverse do you think the stakeholders are?
So as we said, like we're supporting everyone. So we work both with the guilds and with the companies. And our goal, as we said, like to allow them to build their code and make sure it is delivered to production. So we got requirements from guilds, from the companies, and we work on them. But we're changing this a bit. As we said, we are getting more and more platform. And part of it is we are defining actually the contract for them, how they interact with us.
Mm-hmm.
So the main interaction point is the local development. We are heavily invested there. And also in GitHub. This is where all those code changes come through. And this is where most of the interactions developers have with us, because they have their PRs, they work on them, they get notification about the build statuses, what happened in their build, if they have different violations, they need to fix, and at some point they finish and merge to master.
Yeah. So I think that GitHub is a good example for something that we're platformizing, because developer platform is a term. It's like a very big term, but at the end of the day, it combines from a lot of pieces. And I think that in terms of our stakeholders, you mentioned the guild and the companies, but we have also other organizations like security, FinOps, production stability, all those organizations. And GitHub is a good example for where we are required to platformize the solution in order to provide or to answer some security requirements.
Yes.
So maybe we can talk a bit about what we did with the code owners thing.
Yeah. So before we go to code owners, maybe let's go into the do-it-yourself solutions that is mainly based on GitHub Actions, but it's still aligned to our overall platform. So the idea is that we create interaction points in our platform for different pipelines to integrate with. So we have our own pipelines, but we have support for any other pipeline. The chosen one is GitHub Actions because we're already in GitHub. And
also, it's well documented, it's easy to use, people like it. So
of course,
we decided to give them that.
Yeah. And we provided GitHub Actions so everyone is able to interact with our platform, basically notify on different events, and become integrated in the DevEx ecosystem. This allowed us to normalize all the flows inside our platform and answer different security questions like who is able to pull this third party? Was this third party scanned? And we allow this by ensuring that all the third parties are coming from our own Artifactory after scanning all those third parties. And because we also the one that provide the runtime for all those build pipelines built by us or DIY, we are able to control where all those third parties are coming from. Mm-hmm. So this is how we answer the security, one of the security requirements.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, we were once just CI. So our only goal was to create ability for developers to build their code and deploy it to production. But now, as the business develop and we are looking into more and more secured solution, we are getting more and more complex requirements that puts us in a situation where we need to also balance between being enablers and enforcements of security requirements and other requirements.
Yeah, and that's where those integration points come to help. Because you need to reach all those points in order to advance in the release pipeline, so-called, even we don't have like one single pipeline. Mm-hmm. But we have this process that is based on our platform. And this process allowed us in those integration points to do all those verifications. One of the verifications that we have is the code owners that we integrated with GitHub, and we basically built a completely new solution on top of it that helps us to manage ownership of all those projects.
Let's deep dive into this because I think it's a really brilliant solution that we did in the end. So can you talk about a little bit what was the requirement there and how we implemented it at the end?
So in order to create a secure solution on top of GitHub, you must ensure that every code change goes through PR that has all the validations that we require as mandatory.
This is just to make sure everybody understand, we wanted not just to block external threat, but also internal threat. So if some developer has like a mean intention, we want to also be able to block this or at least reduce the radius blast.
Yes. So the requirement was to make sure that all those that actually manage the code for the project are able to make changes to that project, or at least make sure they are those that approve all those code changes. And we already had something we call ownership tag. It's basically a way to maintain members, developers, and assign different resources that they own using ownership tag. So what we did, we copied all those ownership tag as GitHub teams and created an enforcement that requires you to have code owners, GitHub code owners, but we also added some few verifications there that actually this team is a real ownership tag, and we require that there could be only one owner because it doesn't make sense to have two owners for a code. So like who is the actual owner, right? And we prepared the migration. So this is something like we keep like doing all the time because we have a lot of legacy. Wix is not a new startup that's coming with new solutions.
Yeah.
We have
tens of millions of lines of codes in different repositories. And
so everything we do, we need to prepare a smooth migration for our developers. And at the end, what all developers had is that they had their code owners files with ownership tags, teams set as owners, And we also added some new features. For example, if for your code you want basically to auto-approve your own changes, you can do it. And if you have some shared files, like yarn log, like that everyone is touching, like let's allow everyone to touch it, right?
Yeah.
And at the end, eventually, it's like you require PR flow. You require everyone to do the PR. You have the required status checks. And when everything is green, you're able to merge and to get your releases.
I think this is a really great example of how we could have, we did like a smooth integration to regular developer tools that are in the market. We already use them, but we use them to actually enforce a business requirement, for in this case, security requirement. And I think that it also helps in other senses. For example, now we can get a piece of code and say, who's the owner of this piece of code? And we can do something with this.
Yes.
Like enforce standards or enforce any other thing.
Yeah, so this allows basically to know who is actually the owner of the code and if there is anything that should be done with it because it need to make some change, migrate from one library to another library.
Deprecations.
To do some deprecation. We know whom we can call.
It's a blame.
Call.
We can blame him.
Yeah, but yes, we have additional solutions that allows to notify the owners about what they need to do. We have a direct line of communication with them using Slack, and basically we automate this interaction. Mm-hmm. There is no need to run after people and chase them. We know who are the owners, we know how to contact them, and we know how to track that they're actually doing all those changes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Another aspect maybe that we got from this ownership thing is that we keep the supply chain secure from the code. Because when you're going to roll out your changes, we know it's you that made the changes. You are the owner of the code, and you are allowed to roll out your changes. So we have this continuous secure pipeline, or many pipelines, but we keep the security of it using ownership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really powerful. Let's move to another part. And I think one of the flagship projects that I see in our group is DevPortal. DevPortal is actually a pluggable system that allows multiple plugins from different parts of the company to be presented in one UI, in one place. And actually, this is the one-stop shop for, as we envision it, all development processes at Wix to be presented. And I think we are building it for quite some time right now, but I think that it's getting more and more mature, and I think that at least the feedbacks that we get, that this is a very powerful tool because it allows visibility of those pipelines that you just described. So it allows me to see builds and their results, and then I can take those results, those artifacts, those projects, and do something with them, deploy them, manage them in production, and all this stuff. What are your perspective on DevPortal?
So as we said, like we're building developer platform, we're platformizing everything. So DevPortal is the user interface of this platform. So in some way, it's also a platform. It's like an extension of it. And because it's an extension of our platform, how we work, we had to develop it from scratch. Like we had some ideas to use Backstage, but we are not getting any.
Why didn't we use Backstage?
we are not getting almost any of the benefits of Backstage because everything we have internally is platformized. It's not something that you find on the market. It's tailor-made for Wix, for our developers, for our processes.
So I can give some context regarding Backstage. Back then, when we started the development of a DevPortal, we actually went and did some research. We met with few Israeli companies. We took Backstage, and they have some open source part, but there is also a commercial company that provides a Backstage. And once we looked on all the possibilities, all of them were very, very strict. They gave us a possibility to manage a standardized solution like Kubernetes and Argo CD and all this stuff. But since Wix is non-standard in many, many aspects, mostly scale, and the way we develop things and the complexity of our solutions, it was an easy decision to make. And we decided to go and build our own DevPortal. And I think this was a very good decision. We can see it right now. We've progressed a lot. And what we have is a tool that is a lot more mature than what the market has to offer. I think also one aspect of this decision was that those tools, Backstage and similar, they're giving us a very siloed solution. And we were looking for a place that we can actually connect different plugins or different flows into one logical flow that will help developer accelerate what he's doing. We talked about the fact that what we want to provide the user is the understanding of what he wants to do now. So I created a service, for example. Now what I want to do? I want to get a deployment for it. I want to configure the ownership for it. I want to do other stuff. I think that those products are not providing this flow. And I think that this is the power that we have in DevPortal.
Yes, the plugins that we create basically allows the developer to know what they need to do next. And of course, Wix, like we build websites, like we know how to do user experience,
yeah.
Right? We have
tons of tools for UI.
Tons of tools, infrastructure, components, and the look is amazing of DevPortal, and it looks great, behaves nice, and solve most of the day-to-day challenges of the developers. I think that the most interesting part of DevPortal is that integrated into every aspect of developer, of what they need to do. It's not just what you build and what you need to roll out. It's also to look at what you own and see what's the status of it. Like, what's the status of all my projects? Maybe I need to do something with them. Maybe it's not necessarily something urgent, but I want to get the understanding. And this is the one place that can connect everything together. So if I can compare it to something else, it's like AWS console, but just for Wix developers. Like you get everything in there, but even in AWS console, it's too fragmented as many products, and we are doing something different. We're trying to connect everything together and make a more smooth and more user-friendly experience. You don't need to be such a big expert in order to use DevPortal.
I want to give one example. For example, you talked about standards, and I wanted to talk about a plugin that we did. It's pretty new. It's open for everyone, like in the past 6 months, I think. But this is exactly the way that we envision enforcing standards. So the plugin name is Project Quality, and it lives in two contexts. One context is the actual project. So I can see an overall status of different aspects of my project. One of them is the security we mentioned. The other one would be resilience, performance, and those kinds of things. And just to give a hunch of what I can do with this, I have, for example, a score that is calculated from multiple metrics regarding my project. For example, how many emergency deployment I did in the last, 1 month. How many gradual deployment, how many successful deployment, how many rollbacks from production. Those kind of metrics give me real hunch regarding the health of my project. And then one example is, am I opted into the standard process of gradual deployment that we provide? If not, in this dashboard, I have a link to go and opt in. And then I can increase my score really easily. And I think this is some kind of connecting the dots for the user, helping him getting to a better results, helping the company get at the end to a better results. Because you can give a lot of dashboard to managers, to head of business unit companies, but at the end of the day, the actual work is being done by developers. And this is why we are aiming there. And this is the tool that we're providing.